The horse auction was in full swing, and the girl had only $32 in her pocket, along with a horse so frail it seemed to have no life left in it. She had no reason to buy it, nor did she want to bring home another burden. The world had turned its back on them. But when their eyes accidentally met, an unexpected miracle suddenly ignited. A powerful bond, overcoming all obstacles, challenging fate, and proving that even the most broken souls can rise from the ashes. This is not just a story of saving a horse, it is a testament to the limitless power of resilience and love. This story will touch the deepest part of your heart. Join me as we embark on this emotional journey, where miracles can transcend all boundaries of life. The sun hung heavy in the sky over the rural American landscape, like a giant fiery ball scorching the dry earth. The sound of cicadas droned on, and the wind stirred up dust on the road leading to the weekend livestock auction, a place that had witnessed countless lives being decided with nothing more than a cold slap of a hammer. Amid the chaos of old hay, the faint whinnying of horses, and the voices of bidders, Emily, a 15-year-old girl with brown eyes as deep as the earth after rain, was carrying a basket of red apples to deliver to Mrs. Martha's stall, a chore her mother had given her while she was on summer break. Emily had no intention of staying here. She hated it. Too many goodbyes, too many cold stares toward innocent creatures. But today, something held her back. A sound. A glance. Or maybe it was just a feeling. The main auction area was located in the center, enclosed by a weathered wooden fence, worn from the sun and wind. The buyers, sellers, and spectators all wore expressions of calculation, curiosity, or indifference. Emily weaved through the crowd, planning to just pass by, but then the loudspeaker's voice echoed, pulling her heart in. Lot number 47, a 3-year-old stallion. Dark bay coat. Thin, origins unknown. Starting bid, $50. A brief silence. Then murmurs and chuckles. This one should be sent for glue. Costs too much for hay and barn space. No one would take it for free. Emily furrowed her brow, her gaze locking on the gate that was being opened. And then, her heart sank. A creature stepped out, if it could even be called that. The horse, lot 47, didn't walk, it staggered forward, as though dragging a forgotten past behind it. Its coat was patchy and dull, with clumps of hair missing as if scorched by fire. Its ribs jutted out like sharp blades poking through thin skin. But worst of all were its eyes, not because they were sunken, but because they lacked any glimmer of hope. Only resignation, a desperate resignation. Emily felt her heart tighten. She had seen those eyes before. On her old horse, Rusty, the friend who had been with her through childhood, the only one who listened when she cried during her parents' fights, and the one who had passed away on a stormy night from pneumonia. Since that day, she hadn't dared approach the stable again. But today, it felt as if Rusty was calling her name through the eyes of lot 47. The auctioneer's hammer struck again. Anyone? $40. Just $40. Come on, this is a rare opportunity. Silence. Emily dug into her pocket. Loose change, a few crumpled bills, totaling only $32. She had no right to buy. No reason to be here. But her feet moved forward before her mind could even process it. I'll offer $30. Her voice came out louder than she expected. The entire auction ground went dead silent. The man with the hammer stared at her as though she had just declared she would fly to the moon. $30. For lot 47. Sold. The hammer struck the dry wooden board. Laughter and mockery erupted from behind. A little girl got herself a pile of bones. Probably thinks this is an animal rescue game on the internet. Emily didn't look back. She only gazed into the eyes of the creature, and this time, she saw something different. A tiny spark, as small as the tip of a needle, but it was light. The stable hand handed her the reins with a shake of his head. "I'm serious, kid. It's not even worth a blade of grass. If you don't get rid of it soon, it'll drag you down with it." Emily tightened her grip on the reins, stepped closer, and gently placed her hand on the horse's neck. "Your name will be Ashes. Because even if you're just ashes, you can rise again from the fire. Like a phoenix." Ashes trembled slightly, but did not step back. And so, the journey began. When Emily looked into Ash's eyes, she knew something great was waiting for them. But would she have the strength to fight when everything seemed to be against them? Emily couldn't believe what had just happened. She sat quietly in the truck, still gripping the reins tightly, her eyes never leaving Ashes, the emaciated horse she had just bought with her meager savings. Its body seemed to be falling apart in the early autumn wind, but its eyes, though tired and exhausted, still held a faint spark that Emily couldn't ignore. It was the light of something not yet extinguished, a hope that she felt deep in her heart. When she arrived home, her father, Ethan, was standing by the door, his face filled with anger. He couldn't believe his eyes. "Little girl, are you out of your mind? We can't even feed this family, and yet you bring home a dying horse. How are we supposed to take care of it?" Ethan shouted, his voice tight with stress and worry. Emily swallowed her tears, not wanting to show her disappointment and frustration. She had heard these criticisms too many times already. But this time was different. She couldn't let Ashes suffer any longer. She couldn't abandon it. "I'll work to take care of it, Dad. I'll help it recover," she responded firmly. Ethan narrowed his eyes, looking at her coldly, but he didn't say anything else. He simply turned and walked into the house. Emily's mother, Catherine, stood next to him, her tired eyes gazing at her daughter, who was desperately trying to hide her fears. Emily could feel the exhaustion and tension from her family, but she couldn't turn back. She had made up her mind. Each day, Emily put all her energy into caring for Ashes. She took on extra work at Todd's auto repair shop, cleaned the stables, and helped with the garden at a neighbor's farm. Every night, she stayed up late, patiently watching over Ashes, cleaning and soothing the wounds on its frail body. But the first night after bringing Ashes home, things didn't go as she had expected. While Emily was trying to catch a quick nap, a strange sound woke her. She rushed outside, her heart pounding in her chest. Ashes was lying down, its front legs curled underneath it, its body trembling, unable to stand. She rushed over, a feeling of despair spreading through her. "Not like this. It can't be like this. No, not now." Emily screamed in pain, tears streaming down her face. She bent down, holding Ashes, trying to get it up. But nothing changed. Its head hung low, and its breathing grew weaker by the minute. Emily didn't know what else to do. She could only call on her phone, urgently dialing Dr. Margaret, a retired vet who lived nearby. She knew, even though she had retired, she was the only one who could help. After the call ended, it wasn't long before Dr. Margaret arrived. She was wearing worn-out clothes, her silver hair longer and more unkempt than in her younger days. She bent down beside Ashes, her experienced eyes scanning the poor horse. Dr. Margaret didn't say anything, she just silently checked its condition. "Little girl, you've chosen a path full of blood and tears, but it could also be the path to a miracle," Dr. Margaret said, her voice raspy but warm. Emily looked into her eyes, unsure of what to say. She simply nodded, biting her lip to hold back her tears. Dr. Margaret gently adjusted her coat and began to work. She used a special force system instead of letting Ashes drink regular water to prevent it from becoming further exhausted. Her eyes were focused, and her hands moved steadily as she handled the emergency situation. Emily sat silently, too afraid to move, her eyes never leaving Ashes. She couldn't lose it, she couldn't let herself give up, not when it was looking at her with those eyes that still held a glimmer of light. Now, even though it was just a small spark of hope, for Emily, it was all she needed. A chance. And as night fell, when Ashes had gradually stabilized its breathing, Emily gently lay down beside it in the stable, listening to its steady breaths. She didn't need to say anything more. She understood. She hadn't given up. And Ashes, though still weak, was beginning to recover, little by little. Not just physically, but from within its heart as well. Their story had only just begun. A strong creature is not measured by its physical strength alone, but by the passionate heart within. When Ashes began to rise, the world seemed to brighten. But its recovery was not just about the body, it was a journey of healing the soul. Emily and Ash's story was not just about a girl saving a horse. It was also a story of resurrection from despair, of long sleepless nights, fleeting moments of hope, and ultimately, of the unbreakable bond between two fragile souls fighting together to survive. After many days of caring for Ashes, Emily began to notice subtle but significant changes. The horse no longer lay still, no longer breathed heavily like before. Ashes had started to rise, though its legs were still weak, with each step becoming more stable. The horse ate its first bit of fresh grass, easing the hunger and thirst it had endured for so long. Emily sat beside Ashes, looking at it with pride in her eyes. This was the first time she felt life returning in the companion she had saved. But not only Ashes needed to be reborn. She, too, felt a change within herself, as though part of her soul was healing with every step the horse took. Emily began to learn how to care for Ashes from the depths of her heart. She studied herbal remedies to heal its wounds, and an old veterinarian taught her acupuncture techniques to ease the horse's pain. Every day, she spent an hour practicing light exercises with Ashes, leading it around the yard, helping it get used to simple movements. Sometimes, she would just sit next to the horse, gently stroking it, as if both were slowly getting used to each other, moment by moment. The long sleepless nights, when Emily stayed awake caring for Ashes, made her wonder not just about its physical state, but about herself. She felt that both she and Ashes were walking a path of healing together. With every step Ashes took, she saw herself starting to return, regaining her faith in life, and finding the strength she once thought was lost. One beautiful morning, when the sunlight began to filter through the trees, a strange sound echoed. Emily looked outside and saw a large horse, with a muscular build and a majestic gait, approaching Ashes' stable. This horse was unlike Ashes, strong, healthy, and seemingly full of confidence. It was Braveheart, a horse from Mr. Calvin Rusk's neighboring stable. At first, Braveheart seemed dominant, standing a distance away from Ashes and displaying an air of superiority. However, not long after, this horse seemed drawn to Ashes, perhaps sensing the weakness and the desire for rebirth within it. An unusual connection slowly began to form between them. Emily stood observing from a distance. Braveheart often approached Ashes, sniffing its frail body, then walking away, as if testing its strength. At first, Ashes stood still, its eyes still sad and confused, but then, there seemed to be something in Braveheart's gaze that awakened Ashes. In the following days, they started to communicate in their own way. Braveheart did not attack Ashes, instead, it began guiding Ashes with each step. The two horses walked together across the yard, Braveheart leading the way, while Ashes followed, occasionally stopping to check its own progress. Emily realized that Braveheart was not just a strong horse, but a silent teacher, helping Ashes rediscover its wild instincts. This horse taught Ashes how to fight, how to stand resilient in the face of adversity, and most importantly, it taught Ashes that life is a continuous battle for survival. And in those mornings, when Emily watched the two horses playing together on the meadow, she felt an invisible connection between Ashes and Braveheart. It was not just a bond between two animals, but a symbol of love and perseverance. She wondered if she, too, could learn from Ashes and Braveheart about never giving up, even when life pushes you to the brink of despair. And she realized that, together with Ashes, she was also finding her own strength. Both Ashes and she were slowly healing, not just physically, but emotionally, restoring their belief in life and in each other. Their journey had entered a new phase. It was no longer just about saving Ashes, but about healing both of them, a journey filled with love, perseverance, and hope. Because in life, sometimes the smallest miracles come from the most unexpected connections. A dream is not something distant that we only wish for. Sometimes, a dream is the steps we dare to take, even if the path is full of challenges. As Ashes gradually recovered and connected with Braveheart, Emily realized they had come a long way. But her true dream wasn't just to heal Ashes, it was a new journey, a bigger challenge, to prove that nothing is impossible. One April morning, as the warm spring sunlight streamed through the window, Emily sat at her small desk, her eyes fixed on the book she had found in Mrs. Margaret's library. It was a story about horses that had been abandoned, once deemed worthless, but later became professional competition horses, winning prestigious tournaments. Emily flipped through the pages, feeling each word resonate in her heart. She began to nurture a wild, yet powerful idea. Why couldn't she do the same with Ashes? A smile crept across her face, as if a new spark had lit up in her mind. If those horses could overcome, why couldn't Ashes? It had endured so much pain, but now it was coming back to life. And Emily believed that, if it could, Ashes could also become a competition horse, a warrior, strong and resilient, just as it had always been beneath the surface. That crazy idea began to take shape in Emily's mind. She decided to enter Ashes into the Spring Hill Regional Equine Showcase, a major local competition where talented horses could be noticed and signed up for higher-level events. The passion inside her surged. This wasn't just an opportunity for Ashes to prove its abilities, but also a way for Emily to truly prove to herself and those around her that things that seem impossible can sometimes be changed with belief and determination. However, as she had been taught, every dream faces obstacles. At home, when Emily shared her plan to enter the competition with her father, Ethan exploded in anger. "You can't do this. You're dreaming too much. We don't have the money to support a competition horse. Not to mention, Ashes isn't fully healed yet. You can't be this reckless," he yelled. Emily could feel the tension in her father's voice. She knew he was worried, but she couldn't give up. She couldn't watch Ashes be abandoned again. This was the only chance for Ashes to shine, and she had to do everything she could. "I'll do whatever it takes to get Ashes into the competition, Dad. I'll take extra shifts, find ways to make it work," Emily said, determined. However, what she didn't expect was that Calvin Rusk, the owner of the stable where Braveheart was raised, would appear one afternoon, just as Emily was preparing her training plans for Ashes. Calvin looked at Ashes with a mocking gaze. "This is ridiculous, kid. You're going to have this horse compete? You plan to turn it into a racehorse?" He laughed dismissively. Emily looked up, feeling embarrassed but maintaining steady eye contact. She wasn't going to back down. "I know what I'm doing, Mr. Rusk," she replied, her voice firm. Calvin fell silent for a moment, then suddenly changed his tone. "I'll sponsor the training if you agree to have Ashes compete under my name. It's not that I don't believe in your horse, but I can help it get closer to what you're hoping for," he offered, his eyes calculating. Emily felt confused. She wasn't sure if this was a good opportunity, but deep down, she knew this was a chance not everyone would get. However, at the same time, she was worried about giving up control to Calvin. Emily thought for a moment, then spoke decisively. "I agree on the condition that I retain the right to care for and make decisions about Ashes. I cannot let anyone make decisions for me about it." Calvin nodded, satisfied. "That's fair. I'll handle all the financial support, and you focus on Ashes." Finally, Emily stood up, the decision made. Ashes would compete, and she would do everything to prepare her horse to fight with all its strength and heart. Emily's dream was no longer just about saving Ashes. It had become a true test to prove that every life, no matter how abandoned or overlooked, could rise and achieve miraculous things. From here on, their story was no longer just about the steps to recovery, but about rising from despair to once again dare to dream. A dream is not something we see when we sleep, but something we persistently pursue, no matter how many storms we face. As Emily and Ashes prepared for the competition, a new challenge arose. But this time, it was not just about the race to win, but the journey to find freedom and prove that, sometimes, miracles come from relentless persistence. The day before the competition began, the entire village showed up to watch, and most of them couldn't hide their ridicule. Phrases like "Ashes is just discarded junk" still echoed in the air, despite Emily having prepared everything for the Spring Hill Regional Equine Showcase. She couldn't escape the criticism, but the more she heard it, the more she felt a great urge from within. This wasn't just about Ashes or herself, it was about proving that no one, nothing, and no circumstance is beyond change. She stood next to Ashes in the stable, feeling the resilience and courage from the horse, even though it was still a little weak, its eyes full of hope. Ashes had overcome many challenges to be here, and though it was once a discarded horse, now it stood as a testament to relentless perseverance. But then, an incident occurred just before the competition. Ashes was slightly injured during training. A small scratch on its leg, but it made Emily extremely worried. It wasn't a serious injury, but at this point, anything could affect the competition. She quickly took care of the wound, anxiously watching over Ashes every minute. Could this stop them? The competition began the next morning. Hundreds of people gathered at the event area. The sounds of applause, cheers, and whispers still couldn't distract Emily. She knew this was the most important moment of her life, and Ashes. The competition was divided into 3 rounds, and the first was basic control. Emily and Ashes entered the round. The tension in the air was palpable. But when Ashes stepped out, the entire crowd couldn't take their eyes off it. Though Ashes was still weak, it moved with calmness and gentleness. It wasn't the fastest horse, but its obedience and determination impressed everyone. Every step it took, though slow, made Emily feel a sense of relief in her heart. Then came round 2, speed. This was the round where everyone expected Ashes to showcase its power. Though it wasn't the fastest horse, during the entire race, Ashes revealed something no one expected: its endurance and unyielding determination. Every stride it made was powerful, not to win, but to prove that even if it was slow, it could finish the race. The final round was high jump, a real challenge. As Ashes stood before the hurdle, the confusion in its eyes made Emily worry. It looked at the barrier, then back at Emily, as if unsure of what to do next. The crowd held its breath as Ashes, though hesitant, gathered all its strength to jump over the hurdle, as if it was trying to break free from the fate that had bound it. And then, a miraculous moment occurred. Ashes didn't just clear the hurdle, it soared over it powerfully, as though it wanted to break every barrier it had endured before. It wasn't just leaping over a challenge, but rising above the pain and struggles. Although Ashes didn't win first place, it still received a special award for extraordinary determination. The crowd stood up, applauding without stop, many in tears from the emotion. Ashes' story was a testament to the hidden strength within every living being, to never giving up no matter how difficult things get. Emily stood there, amazed, looking at Ashes, unable to find words. She felt an immense pride in her horse, but not just about the achievements Ashes had made. She was proud of everything they had overcome, of the journey they had traveled together. After the competition, Emily was invited for an interview on local television, where she shared the story of Ashes, the relentless journey they had both taken, from despair to victory, not in the prize, but in themselves. When she returned home, a special moment arrived. Her father, for the first time in many years, embraced Emily, his emotions visible in his eyes. "You've turned suffering into something miraculous," he said, his voice choked with emotion. Emily looked into her father's eyes, and in that moment, she realized that their journey was not just about Ashes, but about herself and her father, about healing the broken relationship from the past. Their story wasn't just about winning a competition. It was about resilience, perseverance, and unceasing love. And in the end, the most important thing was belief in miracles, even when they come from what seems impossible. Every living creature, no matter how broken, deserves a chance. Not everyone can soar, but everyone can choose not to fall. The journey that began with doubt and ridicule has now become a testament to belief, perseverance, and love. But the true victory lies not in the prize, but in the realization that sometimes the most miraculous transformations happen when we refuse to give up. As the sun sank low in the sky, casting a warm golden light across the field, Emily stood quietly beside Ashes, the place where their incredible journey had begun. She gently stroked Ashes' mane, feeling the steady breath of the horse beneath her hand. The horse, once considered lost and broken, now stood tall, stronger than ever, just like the girl who had saved it. The villagers who had once ridiculed them were no longer around. The mockery, the doubt had faded, replaced by admiration and respect from those who had witnessed the miracle unfold. But Emily knew that the real transformation had taken place inside of her, as well as Ashes. In the quiet moments they spent together, Emily understood that love, unyielding and constant, was the key to unlocking their shared strength. Ashes was more than just a horse to her. It was a friend, a teacher, a companion who had shown her the true meaning of resilience. And Emily, in return, had shown Ashes that even in the face of pain and abandonment, it was possible to rise again. But as the last light of the day faded, Emily's mind wandered ahead. The competition had only been the beginning. There was still so much more to do, so many more challenges to face. The road ahead would not be easy. There would be more hurdles, more doubts, and more struggles. But Emily knew that no matter what came next, she and Ashes were ready. They had already proven that nothing could break them. And as she stood there, watching Ashes quietly graze in the field, Emily realized that their story was not over. Perhaps they had won the battle, but the war was far from over. Their journey was one of endless possibilities, of new beginnings that could take them places neither of them had ever imagined. The greatest miracle is not the victory, but the journey itself. The sky had darkened, but Emily stood still, heart full, as the stars began to twinkle above. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, she wasn't afraid. She had Ashes. and together they could face anything. Sometimes, the greatest miracles aren't about winning or achieving the impossible. They are the quiet strength found in love, perseverance, and the courage to keep going, no matter what.